Hello, ladies. These are our little chickies that we hatched. First batch that we hatched ourselves. About 13 of them. Our roosters, may they rest in peace. This is their legacy right here. They were all Dominique roosters. So I don't know if you can see from here, but these guys all pretty much have the marking of a Dominique. But these were Rhode Island Red mamas and Leghorn mamas and Americana mamas. So we're going to wait and see how many of these turn out to be roosters and what exactly colors they and patterns they end up with. Because I'm starting to think the Dominiques were probably more dominant, you know, than the other genes, because none of them came out brown. I got one that's a little gray. I don't know if you can see him. He's over there. And then two white ones. So those Leghorns, their mama's genes were stronger than the Dominiques, because all our roosters were Dominiques. They have since given their lives for their flock. Unfortunately, predators got a hold of them in protecting the girls. But their legacy lives on, because I'm sure there's boys in this batch out of 13. And then we got another 3 at home that were late hatchers. So we're reinforcing the flock. We'll see how soon before these little guys here. They're going to have to go out soon because the ones at home are ready to come to the farm. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. This little guy behind me would stop yelling at me. Okay, so you see we put a rain gutter on the back of the chicken enclosure, right? And the chicken enclosure is pretty big. This one's gotten bigger and bigger. I'll show you some pictures of what we started with. We've expanded it a couple of times. It's got roosts across the top. These are just branches that we've gotten out of the yard and put up here, and they're nice. They're nice and round, and they're small enough that the foot will very comfortably go around it. You don't want really, really big ones, and you certainly don't want metal. There is a condition that the chickens can get on their feet with metal bars, and so you want to steer away from that. Just natural, what they would be climbing on if they were in the trees. We did get, on a side note, we did get an automatic door opener. Oh, that was a godsend. Didn't spend a lot of money. It's not a solar version. We still have to run electricity to this coop. We're going to work on getting solar power to the coop for all the functions. Right now we only have solar lighting. At night you should see this place. It looks like my husband put little lights. I don't think you can see them, but he put little LED lights all the way around. So at night when the solar light kicks on, this looks like a disco parlor. It's the funniest thing. But I digress. Okay, so the automatic door opener, we spent probably about 160 bucks on that, because it is just the door and the motor, and that's plugged in. So, you know, hopefully we'll be able to get that off and onto solar. Programmed, super easy to program, and the beauty of it is that this way I don't have to get up at the crack of dawn to come out here and open up the chickens. Chickens go out on their own. The downside has been, though, the chickens go out without us here, the dogs got a hold of all my turkeys. They were small, so not easy for them to defend themselves. And they got a hold of, between the dogs and the predators, they got a hold of my ducks. So unfortunately we now have no ducks, no turkeys. Our chickens are here, and you know, that's another thing you have to worry about when you start a farm, is the loss of livestock. And you know, learning as you go, which is hard. It's really hard on the kids too, because you know, to find an animal that's been mauled by a dog is pretty dramatic. But it's the reality of you know, life on a farm. So, but back to what we were talking about, which is my rain gutter thing. So, like I said, this has got a gutter across the back and a downspout. And so the downspout comes here. It's got a little bit of, you want to have a filter, so I have something there to capture all the debris that might fall on it from a good rain. This barrel, let me remove the yucky bug strip. This barrel cost me about $6 at a salvage yard, and we have it strapped so the water, if it comes in pretty strong, it's not going to knock it over. And so what we did was we put PVC pipe coming out the bottom and then this PVC pipe coming across here. And all we did was just cut it in sections and then add these little T-pieces with the screw tip. This is a screw tip so that the chicken nipples would fit right in. And as you can see, this one over here tends to fill up more than the other ones. And that's because, unfortunately, it's kind of tilted down. Because originally what we did was we installed these and left them a little too far away from the mesh. And so the chickens were standing on it. So in retrospect, what I would recommend that you do is put it like we did now, which it's attached directly. You see how it's attached directly to the mesh? So it's as tight as possible against the mesh. Prevents them from getting up there. I did add also, I don't know if you can see right here, I added a bulb valve so that we could wash out that pipe. The only thing that I would do different is I wouldn't have it coming out the bottom of the barrel, simply because there's a lot of sediment and dirt and stuff that still gets in it. And so it's liable to, unfortunately, it's liable to clog up, you know, your downpipe. Hasn't happened to us yet because we have a pretty good filter on the top of it. But I definitely would have preferred to have it come out maybe somewhere, you know, here, and then leave a drain spout out the bottom, so that if we wanted to clean out the sediment out the bottom, we could do that. So that's the only thing I would recommend doing differently, is have your chicken cups come out of the side and maybe do a clean out valve on the bottom. Now, as far as on the back side, you can see that there's a pipe coming out. That's our overflow pipe. And so that overflow pipe actually runs down to the ground and then away from the coop and into a buried drainage pipe that we put back there. That is another thing that we learned. All right, girl, move out of the way. Okay, another crucial thing that we learned on the farm is that water will find a way. We put this chicken coop behind me. We put it at the top of the hill, and it's kind of slopes down toward the goats. You know, I don't know if you can see a little bit. You see how the ground kind of slopes down? So we figured if we put the chicken coop up high, we're not going to have problems with rain, with water, right? Because the water will follow the path of least resistance and it'll go down into the goats. Well, that wasn't... Can you please? I'm trying to talk here. Noisy, noisy. Before it was the roosters, now it's the chickens. So one of the things that we discovered very quickly is that high does not always necessarily mean good, because there's always potentially ground higher than the ground that you're on. So what we ended up having a problem with was that the water started running down behind the chicken coop. And so let me walk behind here. So as you can see, right there on the ground is lower than the rest of the coop. So what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. I'm out here in the frickin' rain trying to shovel a trench behind the chicken coop because my chickens were in 4 inches of water. Not recommended to be shoveling with a poncho in the middle of a rainstorm. So what we learned was that make sure and visit your property and establish which way the rainwater wants to go, and then decide where you're going to put things, because it would have been incredibly easier to put in the drain that we had to put in and run it prior to putting that huge piece of chicken coop in its way. Okay, another item that we learned the hard way, because that seems to be the best thing to do, is to do it the hard way. You're already 50 and 60 years old, not having the strength of a 20-year-old for sure, and you know, your kids are grown and they help you only as much as they can, because this is mom's crazy dream, is don't build something for design. Build it for function. And what I mean about that is that oftentimes we get these cool ideas off of YouTube, or we get cool ideas off of, you know, Craigslist or Pinterest, which, please, somebody get my husband away from Pinterest. And it looks so cool on paper. Now, build it, and then the functionality is perfect case in point. You see behind me, we have a glorious bunk bed treehouse for the goats. Yes, it's adorable in premise. They loved it when they were little. They don't go in there now that they're big. You can't do deep bedding in a treehouse. Plywood floor, for some reason, doesn't like moist, disgusting hay fermentating on it. Fermentating? Is that even a word? Fermenting on it. So you start ending up with problems with your floor, problems with your wall. Now what has happened is that unfortunately, that lovely treehouse has become a backup. I don't know if you can see him, but it has become a backup for the chickens. So the chickens now are laying eggs in that goat house. Now I will tell you that there was no way that I was going to continue to clean that thing out. We were having to take the hay out the bottom and off the bunk beds because, of course, goats poop everywhere. And it was ending up on the floor outside the coop, a nice big compost pile right next to the house, which the chickens loved. But the problem was then that the goats were in with the dogs. And the chickens wanted to go to that compost pile and do their job, because that's what chickens are supposed to do, is to clean up after the goats. And so then the chickens were getting in there to do their job, and the dogs were eating the chickens. I don't think that's the way permaculture is supposed to work. Now, that leads me into the next step of what you need to learn. Don't buy full-size livestock dogs. We bought 2 dogs. They were pretty puppy, but they were still about a year old. We're not living on the property full time. So we have not as much interaction with the dogs and training them to the animals. They're unsupervised more than they're supervised. And then somebody decided that they had a giant livestock dog, Great Pyrenees, that they couldn't have anymore because he apparently barked at every bird on the sky in their neighborhood, and the neighbors were complaining, and it was probably going to end up with the dog going to, to the pound. So they knew we had a farm. They knew we had 20 acres. They said, hey, would you like a livestock dog? A Great Pyrenees. Beautiful dog. His name is Max. And I don't know if you can see him way back there in the background. They're too busy watching the loggers because we've got him clearing some of the land here. The problem is that Max not only hates birds in the sky, he loves to eat birds on the ground. He has single-handedly killed all my turkeys, not the ducks. I think the ducks we lost them to predators just here on the farm. Again, because we're not here full time. And so there's no way to train him. He's gotten a taste for chicken. And so the other farmers that we've talked to, they said, well, you got to put a bullet in the dog's head. And I'm like, I'm not killing the dog. If I can't eat it, I'm not killing it. That's just, no, I just don't see that as appropriate. And if I send him to a rescue, so we're hoping that we can find a place for Max where he will be away from the birds. And we have reinforced the paddocks enough, I think, that, we lost 2 last week because, the chickens, they want to do their job. They want to get in there with their goats, and they want to do what they're supposed to do, which is cleanup crew. When we first moved onto this property, I will kid you not, there was 4-foot-high brush and, oh my gosh, I'll post some pictures here. The chickens have single-handedly removed every tick from these 20 acres. I kid you not. If you have problems with fleas, if you have problems with ticks, if you have problems with any type of bug whatsoever, get yourself some chickens. I cannot tell you how many ticks I had in places I will never, ever forget. And now, not one. I'll go home and I don't have not one tick on it. So, lesson learned. If you want to get rid of pests, Do not use pesticides. Do not spray. Get a chicken. Yeah, work for me.